We'll get going. One, to our audience, whether you're being streamed, we're going to be on the local access channel in 30 seconds. We're there. And of course, we're on Zoom. This is a Zoom City Council Finance Subcommittee. It is via Zoom. It's being recorded. And of course, we are always subject and always abide by the open meeting laws, even the ones that are more adhere more to the COVID pandemic situation itself. So welcome everybody. My name is Joe McGivern. I'm chairman of the Finance Committee. Members of the Finance Committee with us this evening are Councilor Peter Tallman, Councilor Mike Sullivan, Councilor David Bartley, and our Vice Chair, Councilor James Leahy. We are the voting members of the Finance Committee. Other city councilors that are with us are Councilor Terrence Murphy, Councilor Rebecca Lisi, Councilor Libby Hernandez. By telephone only is Councilor Holly Graney, and our President, Councilor Todd McGee, is with us. I'm sure just about everybody of the City Council, if they're not here yet, will be joining us for this discussion. I want to just prelude a couple things real quick as we start discussion and try to get us to focus on something and explain that there's been a number of significant changes that the city learned of today. The recap sheet is different. The governor's budget is that the city felt was voted upon last Friday is I guess slightly different, which is having an impact. And DLS is just getting a lot of the final information from Melanson and Heath, who is our outside independent auditor. And there's some decisions that have been made, and there's some, let's put it this way, there's some, I think, good news short term. I think there's some long-term news that we got to deal with, but we all know that. And there's some, still some things that we have to logistically accept or discuss this evening. What it comes down to, and I'm going to, is our auditor with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, just checking, Tanya. And our tax collector's with us?
Yep, same line.
Okay, Tanya and Katie, thank you. And there's a number of people here, but what I'd like to do is, because it may be the only vote we're going to take before tax classification, is the vote on the, I call it the reduction of the school department budget, but it's via a transfer within the department budget itself. And that's something that we do just about every year, when the final numbers came in. So recognizing everybody that's here before we open this up for discussion, I also like to give a special recognition because I believe we have Dr. Alberto Vasquez Matos with us. Doctor? Thank you. I'm sorry that we have to meet you, most of us, for the first time on Zoom, but welcome to Holyoke, and we appreciate you being with us. And on my screen, I see the infamous Anthony Soto is also with us.
Yes, right.
Anthony, good to see you again. I guess the hat's okay. I don't know about the champion sign back there, but from a New York Giants fan, I can accept anything.
Oh, I wish you didn't say that.
Yeah, but Puerto Rico was the world champions for.
There you go. There you go.
That's right.
I gotta recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor Alex Morse, Mayor, I know is with us. Yep. And I learned a lot of things about the last hour and a half, so I don't want to. I think I alluded to them, but I want to make sure we're on the right track here. So Tanya, Katie, and Mayor, can you just, item number one, why don't we start it this way? Item number one is the school department transfer. Can I have a motion to take that off the table?
Make a motion to take it off the table.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. So on item number one, we have a number that we had, a file, an order, of a number transfer reduction because of the difference in Chapter 70 monies and the final budget for what the schools received. That number is now with us, and I believe, Mayor, am I correct in saying that is the only vote we need to take to, I don't even know if we need to take it to balance the budget, we need to take it.
Yeah, so just to provide a quick overview, it's the only vote you can take, but the actual number is only on the agenda for the special meeting that starts at 6 o'clock.
I understand the numbers, but it is on this agenda for discussion.
Yep. So absolutely. So just to provide a quick summary, and then Tanya and Katie can fill in some of the context. And I appreciate everyone being here for finance, and appreciate the suggestions on Tuesday night, and glad to all be together to get on the same page and move forward and hopefully set the tax rate. But when we were here on Tuesday night, we were looking at, I want to say, about an 800 and something $1,000 deficit. At the time, I made two assumptions. Number one, we were told by the state that we had to raise and appropriate the sewer fund deficit from FY20, raise and appropriate that this year. So that was part of the deficit. We were also told, I thought at the time, and that's what we're still doing tonight, but what I thought we had to do at the time was also raise and appropriate the projected sewer fund for FY21 tonight. And we were told literally just a couple hours ago that we actually do not need to have a transfer from stabilization to cover the projected deficit for FY21, that we could work together to address that this current fiscal year, whether it's a rate increase or whether we have to raise and appropriate it again next year like we're doing this year for the last fiscal year. So that's a big relief. That's about $1.1 million. And so what that has done is it swung us to where we are tonight. And so instead of having a $800,000 deficit, we now have a nearly $600,000 in excess of the levy limit. So we have about $600,000 of unused capacity in the levy limit. So that's one change, the swing of $1.1 million from the sewer fund deficit that doesn't need to be covered right now. Number two, I want to thank Councilor Sullivan for bringing up the HGE pilot. It was an oversight on our behalf. The Gas and Electric Commission did vote earlier in the spring to increase the annual pilot amount to the city. And so those updated revenue numbers have been approved by the state with the board vote of the commission. Is about an additional $120,000 or so for this fiscal year. So that's included in there. And then we also, Tuesday night, I thanked Dr. Vasquez Matos and Anthony Soto in the school department for getting back to me with an updated projection of school transportation costs. On Tuesday night, that number was 1.8 million. And I know Councilor Vacan and a few other councilors had talked about, well, can we get that number up at all, or the reduction down further? And so after a conversation with the superintendent and Anthony Soto on Wednesday, they agreed to an overall $2 million reduction, which is a $200,000 reduction over what they had agreed to for Tuesday night. And so those are just a few of the changes that have happened since Tuesday night that has got us to the position we're in tonight. And so essentially there's no vote needed to be taken from stabilization to balance the budget. The budget's essentially balanced at this moment in time. But I would just, again, as Joe McGivern alluded to, long-term challenge, the sewer deficit is going to be something that we have to address. And I mentioned to the council president, and I'll mention here tonight, I would love for Suez and the DPW director to come in and have a conversation about sort of the reason for the deficit, what a break-even rate would be, but also as we get close to a contract renewal conversations with Suez, they have presented a number of options to the city. If we were to agree to a 5-year extension as to what type of relief they can provide the city in the short term on an annual basis. But I want to make sure the council is fully up to date on that. But so that's where we are. Katie and Tanya, I don't know if you want to add any context or details that I may have missed.
If we could
I
hear
feel like
from
you covered the.
Go ahead, Tanya.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like he covered all of the changes that we had recently gone through.
Okay, well, the one thing, Mayor, just the one thing, and you covered everything, but just a reminder, the other thing that we have to resolve is, and I believe it was well over, well, it might have been close to 2 million, but the money, what would have been free cash that was used to cover deficits within the department's budgets, many of them $289,000 with schools, which I'm going to have a question about that a little bit later. But those deficits were in police, fire, DPW, across the board, some significant, a lot that added up. And we would have had, if I got that correct to the auditor, we would have had close to $2 million in free cash if we didn't have to do that.
Yeah, Tanya, I think the number was a closer to 1.3. And Tanya, can you talk a little bit more about what you plan or what we're seeking to implement as a result?
So I don't actually have the deficit in front of me, the full deficit, but it was like 1.7, I believe. And So what I wanted to actually discuss with you is that I had a conversation with one of the other auditors from Chicopee, and what they actually implemented in their system was they actually put a flag on all of their grant funds and special revenue funds. So when you try to process your requisitions, it will come back to the auditor, and they will have to call me to have the flag taken off. And at that time, I can ask them for their contract details. I can see where they are on their spending and when the last time that they filed their reimbursement for, and when they will be filing for reimbursement for their upcoming expenses. That way we can track our current grants and special revenue accounts, but also we can separate ones that we're not using anymore either, because they will be on hold. There won't be expenses or revenues charged or put towards those grants, so that we can gather them all together and start weeding out the old from the new, and maybe pay off some of those deficits and put ourselves in a better financial situation.
Sounds good. Not the discussion in real detail for tonight, but we appreciate that from both of you. If we could, and I have, before we go into questions and answers from the committee and from any city councilor, I think the next thing what we're looking for is an explanation of what we need to do to work with the schools on their budget. Doctor, yourself or that great guy sitting on my screen, he's sitting next to you, Mr. Soto, of course. If you want to just give us an idea of what's going on with the budget. And I know we understand a lot of this was last minute, and we appreciate it, but we got to take a vote because we got to set the final tax rate pretty soon.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you, City Council, for inviting me to this meeting. Mayor Morse, for your support and being a partner on the journey on making sure our students have access to equitable educational services and resources. And so one of the things that we are analyzing right now, as a result, yes, $1.8 million, well, now it's $2 million, can go back to the city because of the fact that COVID impacted our transportation protocols, and making and knowing that many of our students are still remote learners. However, after the holiday season, many of our students are going to come back for in-person learning, and we have surveyed our families, and we know that at least 50% of our families want to come back for in-person learning, which requires us to actually making sure that we have transportation and other resources available for our students. So under my direction, Mr. Soto and his team did a projection analysis of what that will entail, which is inclusive also of the high school students who right now, many of the families do not feel comfortable of taking public transportation. So we were able to carve into our current budget without adding additional cost, making sure that they actually have accessibility to our city transportation, well, not our district transportation, to make sure that they have access to getting to school and back home. Additionally, we have using the state funds, we have upgraded all of our school sites in making sure that they have HVAC, as well as the ionized latest of the art purification, and making sure that the deficit that we projected, we use those ESSER funds to making sure we can actually make available or upgrade our systems, which means that even though those ESSER funds are available this year, they are not going to they're not going to be available to us next year. So we were able to kind of balance the budget using those one-time grants or dollars, to making sure that we are able to make sure that all our facilities have the appropriate facility HVAC and circulation and mitigation as it relates to the COVID or any other virus related spread that might happen in building. Additionally, we were able also to making sure that we have all of the required PPEs, which were part of our overall budget. Now, keeping in mind that this is all one-time allocations for our district, which means that next year the district has the burden to find alternative measures or balance the budget or look at our resources to making sure that we can continue this, knowing that this pandemic is an unknown and we do not know how long this may continue, right? Even though we get from the federal and state regulations, timelines, we know that that changes every single day. So we are trying to kind of mitigate and making sure that we are proactive in cost avoidance, but also in cost saving measures in making sure that our budget is actually balanced moving forward without compromising our educational program, which our students so desperately need currently right now. So this is where we're at right now, and making sure that we are stable, making sure that our students receive the resources and the supports, but also making sure that we are doing right by being good stewards of our public tax dollars.
Doctor, thank you, and you're well spoken, and I think you'll find the vast majority of us are on page with doing the right thing for our students, and that's what we've always been about. It's part of our overall solution for everything that ails the great legendary city. And Anthony, I got to apologize, Anthony. When I saw your hat in the champion sign, I for some reason thought that was the Los Angeles Rams hat, not a salute the Puerto Rican champions. It was, as a New York Giants fan, it's a whole different sport.
I think you should apologize for your New York Giants comment, not.
Well, we'll
not
go
your
into
comment
that,
on
but we don't have enough time tonight because in 1955, Howie Graney will tell you there was no New England Patriots, there was no Boston Patriots that you could watch. And the only thing you watched on TV, because there was no cable TV, was the Giants out of Hartford. But anyways, that's not for tonight, right? Okay, we I think we got a table set. We got two things to do with the special meeting tonight. We got a couple more things to do here in finance, and certainly have a discussion. And it's time to open up for questions and see if we need any answers. I think we've got an idea that the only vote we're taking tonight is the school vote. We're going to do that at the special council meeting. It is before us for discussion here. And then once we do all that, it looks like we're in position to take our tax classification vote. Of course, I heard Mr. DeWu talking right as we were starting that there are some readjustment numbers because the recap sheet itself was adjusted. So discussion. I saw Councilor Leahy's hand up first. Mr. Leahy.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone, on this beautiful Friday evening. And it's very good to meet you, Dr. Velasquez. I do have to make a little commentary. I wish you had given the kids a snow day this past week. I think that with this virtual learning, I think they certainly could use a break, and the teachers could use a break, and probably the parents too. That's my little commentary. But I do want to ask you regarding this transfer. More importantly, another way to save money in your department is probably the largest thing that you guys have to pay for besides busing and transportation is healthcare. Is there any? I've been talking about this for a long time. Instead of going to the way we're doing healthcare, is maybe moving to the GIC, the state model. Have you thought about that at all?
So, as you know, I've only been 6 months in the job, so I am like absorbing everything very fast. I know there was comments in the last meeting why the superintendent hasn't met the sitting council member, and I do apologize. You know, the charge was open schools, right? And so that was like the focus of making sure that I open schools appropriate. However, yes, we are in conversations of really looking at, number one, doing an in-depth salary schedule for the district, but also the benefits package for our employees moving forward. So that is part of my long term strategy, as you know, and you probably received the email around my reentry stakeholder meetings that I've been doing. There is one that I've invited elected officials, and I'm pretty sure each of you have received it. If not, please reach out to me, which is coming up in January, around what is it that we need to plan moving forward as it relates to clearly creating a organizational that is operational efficient moving forward for our district. So that is part of our conversations that we are having now.
And my second question is, as you know, it's state law that any child that's deemed homeless, that whatever town they say is their respective hometown, even though if they're living in the city of Holyoke, we're now charged to bus them to that school district. Have you been in any conversations with the state legislator, maybe to change that, or maybe to have the town that they're going to school, piggyback with us, maybe splitting it 50-50, because the burden falls on Holyoke shoulders, and quite frankly, that's not fair.
So yes, I've started those conversations with outgoing Representative Vega and Duffy and Senator Vilas around a shared cost as it relates to, especially transportation, right? A majority of that transportation cost is those who are out of district placements, and how is it that we can actually share the cost, and not that the receiving district has to inherit 100% of that cost, but actually moving forward of sharing that cost.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions for now.
I just add to your
Yes.
Thank you. So I do want to acknowledge that one of the things that we are doing right now with homeless, with McKinney-Vento Transportation, we have a partnership with Van Pools, who does most of our McKinney-Vento transportation. And currently, as it stands, any of our McKinney-Vento transportation, they directly bill us for 50% of it, and they bill the other community for 50%. Thankfully, because it would be a nightmare us having to cover 100% of the cost and then having to try to get it from the other community. So right now, as it stands, not only do we already directly pay 50% of the McKinney-Vento transportation, and the other community pay the other 50%, but the city also gets reimbursement on any McKinney-Vento transportation. It lags a year, but I think the reimbursement rate's about 36%.
Okay, Anthony, that's good news. But can you speak to the fact about the school choice? And obviously, once again, that's out of our hands. But we have, I think it's, you guys would know, is it close to, it's either $3 or $6 million that the city has to pay for school choice out?
It's $2.7 million that we have to pay out, and we have about 166 students that are choosing another district.
And I'm not talking about the children that have special needs or whatnot that are going to specialty schools. But that's not my concern. I want to make our public school system the best school. And I do know that we have people coming in, especially the E and White program, the dual immersion language. My niece is in that, and she's doing phenomenal. So I do understand people are coming in for programs like that. But I want our children that are in our hometown to stay here instead of reaching out.
So yep. So honorably, I can answer that. So one of the common themes that have come up in the stakeholder entry input from my superintendent entry plan is that we have to create programs that are going to attract out of district placements. And I'm not talking about, student with disabilities or those. So we have to actually reimagine our district and really expand current programs like dual language or STEM, especially in the middle school, because that's where they're leaving. They're going out of district for middle school, then they come back from the high school. And I have to say, Dean has done a great job of reimagining their cohorts and program that to the point that we have a waiting list. Like, people want to come into Dean. We're not doing a good job in the middle school. So part of my plan is actually we're going to have to look at the middle school design and reconfigure our middle school K-8 model in order to attract more people to come in, because the science is out there, the research is out there. Addressing middle school students is different than addressing pre-K to fourth graders. Like they think different, they act different, they learn different, and they need different supports. And at the same time, they need a different environment. So that is what we're currently working on. In February, after I do all my stakeholder inputs, and I hope the city council can participate in a January conversation with the other elected officials, talk about how do we do that right? Do we configure our current buildings? Does that mean that we have to like think about expanding programs, buildings, whatever it may be?
Or maybe 2 new middle schools.
Or middle schools, whatever it may be. The parents actually right now with the 7 stakeholder meetings, that has been the common theme among the stakeholders. They want a standalone middle school program, which I get it. You know, my 26 years under my belt, I've seen it in Hartford. I've seen it when I was in Florida. I've seen it when I was in New York. Middle school students think differently, act differently, and need different supports in a separate situation. So we're going to have that conversation very soon on how we can do this and making sure that we can actually be able to invest in it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Tallman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Councilor McGivern. This is Dr. Vasquez. Nice to meet you, Councilor Tallman. Looking forward to meeting you in the future and chatting about the school system. This question is for Anthony. You found a little bit of extra money in the school budget. Now next year, when it comes to half the students going back to school, will there be enough funding there for the bus service?
Yeah, we would have to restore whatever savings we have now. Once we're back in school, we would have to restore that and follow the contract. Interesting that you asked that, though. One of the things that, you know, I kind of want to put the council on notice of now is that this is the 3rd year of a 3-year contract with busing, and we will have to go out to bid. Interestingly enough, I'm looking into the possibility, and I have to have many conversations with whether or not we can do that. But one of the things that I think would benefit us financially would be to extend that contract, that 3-year contract, for another year to have, you know, predictable rates. It's no secret across the state, transportation companies are losing money, and I'm talking about boatloads of money. And anyone going out to bid this year, pricing next year is going to reflect, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you know, in my experience and the rumor mill and what we've been talking about with other business managers, is like, this is a very bad time to go out and rebid transportation in a year when when a lot of transportation companies are losing money. So I expect, you know, if and when we do go out to bid, that that prices per bus is going to look a lot different than it does now. And I also expect that a lot of a lot of companies are going to be looking for certain protections that they didn't have in their existing contracts. You know, most of these contracts are written for 180 days. Like, hey, this is your pricing, assuming that you're going to go to school for 180 days. And this is your pricing, assuming that you're going to have this many buses. When you don't meet those targets, it's pretty detrimental to their bottom line.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. And one more quick question. Just with the schools being out, and I know certain amounts of students, or a small percentage, are probably in the schools. How does the food budget look for the contract that we had with Springfield? I just wondered if there was a little cushion in there also.
The food budget looks stable. So it's none of the food budget comes out of our local appropriation. It's completely funded under the federal nutrition program.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's an area where we did have to make some staffing, reductions in order to meet the model that we're running right now, which is we're running a model of we're serving at meal distribution at 6 of our sites, but we're doing it 3 days a week and handing out meals for 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack. So any one of our families can show up to any site, and all they need to do is tell us how many school-age children they have, and they walk away with if you come on a Monday, you're going to get breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack for Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday you get it for Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday you get it for Friday and the weekend. That program is federally reimbursed through the nutrition program. So under normal circumstances, the district would, if we were at 80% participation, which we're not, unfortunately, and we were in full operation, not in this mode, we have a guarantee in the food service contract that they return $500,000 to the school department to reinvest back into the program. So that's how we were able to do salad bars in our buildings. We were able to get brand new cafeteria tables, new serving lines. We're able to offer things to improve the quality of the program. That we're not going to see that $500,000, unfortunately, when only 15 to 20% of our students are participating in the program. But I don't anticipate that that financially we're going to be, that we're going to have to tap into local resources at all to continue to run the model that we're running. We'd love for more students to participate, but financially that program is doing okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Hernandez? Libby, you're muted. Okay, I think Councilor Hernandez may have a little technical.
I'm sorry, do you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, so sorry about that. I was having a little technical difficulties. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak. I want to welcome Dr. Vasquez. Very nice to meet you. So sorry that we haven't been able to meet in person. I'm Councilor Libby Hernandez from Ward 4, and I would like to say that the conversation that you were having as it relates to the middle schools, and reimagining what are we going to do as a city and as a district to bring back and engage these students is extremely important in light of that we are losing our youth at that level. We just had a youth, a 15-year-old gunned down, taken away by violence in a senseless act in the corners of Sargent and Walnut. And it's just with incredible urgency that when I hear you speak about the future plans and how you identify one of our biggest problems in this city, it just really makes me happy to hear that you're stepping into the plate to do something about this group of children, which is so essential to address it because we're losing them right before they even arrive to high school. And I am just letting you know that you have my full support, and I want to be part of that process of reimagining how we're going to cater to this group of children. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Hernandez. And I don't say that because I'm the superintendent, because that's my job. I'm saying that because I was born in Puerto Rico. I came to a young age to the States. I'm an English language learner. I know I've been homeless. I know what it is to live on food stamps and trying to, my mother navigate the system to better educate myself and my brothers and sisters. But, you know, I had the opportunity on Monday to visit the mother of the child who lost her 15-year-old and just sit with her and talk to her and ask her, how can we help, right? As not only as a district, but as a city, and making sure that he knows that we are human and the dignity of life is important, regardless of what the history is or the definition of why this happened. But knowing that a mother losing her child at a young age is traumatizing. And so I wanted to make sure that we as a district and me as a leader, as a superintendent, connected with her and saying, how can I help? How can we help in resources, support, or whatever it may be? And my team has been amazing of really trying to strategize and making sure we make the supports available to that family, because I cannot imagine a mother losing a child in such a traumatic situation. And we can do better, right? Holyoke has so much potential. And that's why I said yes to the job, because I know that Holyoke has so much potential and we can be the model for the state. And by the way, Jose is right here. I mean, Anthony's right here. He can justify. Already the state is looking at us as a model for a lot of the things that we've done in a short amount of time around this pandemic. And so we can do even greater stuff in months and years to come. So thank you, Councilwoman Hernandez.
Thank you so much for that response, if I may, Chair. And just a quick follow-up. Thank you so much for reaching out to Francesca, to the mother of this student, and you know, and may he rest in peace. And just know that we are having a peace march on Sunday, and we would like to invite you to walk along with us and with the student's mother, sir. Thank you.
Please send me an email, call me, please let me know.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Yes, hello everyone. I want to just again also same words of remarks to Dr. Vasquez, welcoming you to Holyoke. My name is Gladys Lebron. I'm Ward 1 City Councilor, but I want you to also keep us in mind as an organization, Mass Hire Holyoke. We're the workforce development organization in the city. And I run the youth services for the youth. And Libby knows about the situation, and the mother has allowed me to share, but the young man was in our program, and while he was on that program, he was keeping himself busy too. And unfortunately, the resources that are coming in our community are very little. For example, I want to share so you guys all hear this. When summer employment programs comes to our city, based on the demographic and the ways that it's designed, so those who could advocate on behalf of these youth, we received for an amount of 66 slots. This year was only 88 slots. So the increase is almost by 20 slots. What does that mean? We have 500+ youth applying for these summer jobs, right? Believe it or not, the jobs that you will see and the kind of work we do with these youth is try to help them develop their career path and to explore their interests, and that also builds on their education. I want, you know, to share this on this platform so that you know we're here to work with you and support you in any way. We have a great collaboration in Westfield. We have a career center inside of Westfield High School where we've been doing a great impact, and we're expanding, and we're being asked by other communities to come in. Unfortunately, Holyoke did not work out. I know we're discussing a finance issue today, but we're willing to work with you to even, you know, discuss ways that we can still come back and support youth throughout this pandemic and non-pandemic. Right now, we're doing a lot of virtual work with the youth, even though through a Shannon grant, through the Boys and Girls Club. and a mass housing agency grant that brings in youth from these local neighborhoods to help them develop financial skills, job readiness, career exploration, assessment to determine their learning and skills ability. So I just wanted you to know that we're here to help you as well in any way we can, and that our doors are open, and myself, I'm open to helping. Thank you.
All right, we got 15 minutes before it's time to head to the full city council meeting. And I appreciate all the conversation, but I just want to try to sum up the school department issue here, which is we will have a number change in terms of that reduction to discuss at the next full council meeting in about 15 minutes. Is there anything else on the school budget that we need to discuss? Councilor Bartley, your hand is up new.
He stepped away.
Councilor Bartley, did you have something to say in the schools?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Joe, I'm sorry. That was my father. I had to step away. Joe, well, you asked me a question. I missed it.
No, well, your hand went up, and I'm trying to wrap up our school issue here because we got 15 minutes to the full city council. And I just want to keep focused on the schools and budget stuff, of course.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, I'm just trying to get through our agenda, and respectfully, Doctor, nice to meet you. Real honor. At some point we'll all participate in a school committee meeting, or we'll have you come into city council, meet with us, so we can have a free flowing conversation. But this was very informative, so thank you for your participation. Yeah, Joe, I kind of want to get to the item 5, the tax recap, and I kind of want to get an understanding about the net school spending. I just want to hear where we are with that. If we just so we can walk through it, then maybe we could have a brief conversation with the assessor relative to some of the options before us for settings of the tax rate.
We're going to do all that at the full city council level. Yes, net school spending. Dr. Anthony, could you just give us a good version, but a quick version of net school spending where we are at the moment?
Sure. The budget transfer that you have before you for a vote, it's a reduction of 1,973,700 to our budget. Basically and then on the non-net school spending side, it's $2 million reduction to the transportation budget. But what that represents is the number that would get us to meet net school spending. Initially, it was higher because of this pandemic, and as many of you know, when we were going through last year's budget development process, the state was moving forward with the Student Opportunity Act. Unfortunately, we got hit with this pandemic, and it resulted in what I think is loss of revenue to the state, which ultimately resulted in them reducing our required net school spending. And that's really what this transfer is about. It's this transfer would get us to our minimum net school spending requirement. Luckily, we've been, as Dr. Alberto Vasquez Matos said, this reduction in the budget, luckily we were able to absorb any, we didn't have to do any real reductions in terms of teaching staff or instructional staff, because we were able to benefit from some other funding that was given to us in ESSER, and COVID related funding. The biggest concern I have is probably in future years, when this revenue, and Dr. V had alluded to that as well when he was talking about it earlier. This year, we're able to absorb this cut. This reduction gets us right back to minimum net school spending. I do have concerns about future years.
And Anthony, while you got the mic, the second part of Councilor Bartley's question, I think, is to the recap sheet, and what impact on schools did the new recap sheet have on you?
I apologize. I don't have the recap sheet in front of me, and I don't
Well,
know.
recap would be, it's we call it the cherry sheet, but
Okay.
what's the new number in Chapter 70 monies, and what impact has that had on you?
Yeah, so the new number in Chapter 70, basically, we got a reduction of about $3.8 million. So our net school spending dollars are now $90.1 million. Initially, when we went to when we presented our budget back in June, our adjusted net school spending was closer to 94.5 million. So we saw a reduction of about $3.8 million, but some of that was offset by reductions to what we're required to pay for charter schools and school choice. So our charter assessments went down by $1.7 million. And our school choice tuition amount went down by 71,000. So the net impact on our budget is the $1.9 million that you see in our transfer.
Okay, and that we will attempt to vote on later this evening to correct your budget, to correct our budget, and to go forward. Councilor Bartley.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Grady, 1 second. Councilor Bartley, you all set with that?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, Anthony, you're saying, just repeat the reduction in charter and school choice for me.
So, okay, charter school assessments went down by $1.7 million. So initially in our budget, back in June, we had that at 12.9, and now it's 11.1. Sorry, I'm not giving exact numbers, but
That's close enough. That's close enough.
No, that's actual on the chart, Anthony.
Yep. And then school choice assessments, initially we had budgeted 2.8 million, and now we're budgeting 2.7. There was a reduction of about $71,000 in school choice.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, the reduction in transportation is how that's external to net school spending, and then how is that derived, please?
The reduction in transportation is outside of net school spending. It doesn't impact net school spending in any way. And the primary reason that we've already realized those savings is because a lot of our students are remote. While we plan on moving into a hybrid model in January, a lot of our students are remote. Currently, we have about 18 mini buses on the road and 9 big buses on the road for our cohort C. So that's how we were able to pass on, or that's how we were able to reduce our transportation costs, because we're not, we don't have as many buses on the road right now. We fully expect that in January, when we do move to a hybrid model, that we'll be back to, in terms of the number of buses that we're going to need on the road, it's going to be very comparable to what we had last year, except that there'll be less students riding on the buses. So DESE has real strict guidance that on the buses, students need to be socially distanced. We have to be at about 33% capacity, which is pretty much 1 student per bench in those big buses. And that's why we have to move, that's why we can't bring back all of our students on buses. We have to pare down and do a cohort A and a cohort B, so that the students that are eligible for transportation, they're able to get safely transported to school.
Okay, and so we felt that you and Dr. V have said we can reduce the transportation budget by $2 million. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate as of now.
And then what does that make for our budget, our transportation budget through June, or through whatever period? I mean, maybe, I assume it's through June, maybe through August.
It's to June. However, it's important for the city council members to understand that we have to change our tiered approach of transportation, which means that instead of having a 1-tier approach for transportation, which means drop off and pick up, we would have to introduce a two-tier approach, which means some schools who have started later might have to start earlier, and those who have started later might have to start earlier based on the routing, so that we adhere to the guidance given to us by the state. So we might have extra routes, but we're trying to kind of contain the expenses based on the number of students or parents who have opted in for transportation. So this is just an estimate moving forward to the end of this academic year.
Okay, and the estimate is what from now, from January till June? What is our estimate?
So we're projected to spend $6.7 million in total with this $2 million reduction. You know, I'm fully committed, and I've spoken to Dr. V, and he's directed me to monitor this. And you know, let's say for whatever reason we're not able to bring back students when we want to, that would produce additional savings. I mean, we fully intend on bringing students back, and the budget that we have right now would allow us to do that and transport students safely. So we're able to absorb this cut right now with our current plans with hybrid and bringing students back. We'll be able to safely transport them with the number that you have in front of you. I'll be happy to, you know, and we're happy to revisit this at another time and monitor it throughout the year. And we're committed to keeping the lines of communication open and doing whatever's necessary.
Yeah, that's great, Anthony. I guess you know, just so you don't kill yourself, it'd be nice if you just communicate that with the city council president. You know, obviously the mayor, of course, but
yep.
But if you know, that would be, to me, that would be the most efficient way. But there you go. Thank you,
Councilor Graney. I know you've been patient.
Yes, just two things. One to Dr. Vasquez and one to Anthony. The first one, from what I understand, as we know, the MCAS scores have decreased steadily over the last 5 years in Holyoke. And one of the major problems, as you have already recognized, is that transition period from the middle school. And a lot of some of the countries in Europe are going back to a junior high school model where that transition from grades 7, 8, 9 to the high school level is not nearly as severe. It's a much easier transfer, and they don't lose nearly as many students in that transitional period. That's one thing. It's something just to consider, to maybe look at a junior high school model. And number two, the question to Anthony is the school spending has two parts, obviously the state, so forth, and the city has an obligation to fund. I think that at the state average, it's 21% of the total school budget. If our school budget is $90 million, then the city's obligation will be somewhere around $19.5 million. But in dollars and cents, exactly what is the city of Holyoke's obligation to fund the schools?
So the Chapter 70 makes up over, I want to say 87, Chapter 70 makes up 87%. So the city's obligation is about 13%. If you want in dollars, as far as our foundation budget goes, the local contribution that the city has to make. So we get about 79 million in Chapter 70, and the local contribution from Holyoke taxpayers is 11,207,000.
Okay, thank you.
And Councilman Greeny, to your point about the middle school model, again, back to my previous points, that is something that has surfaced among the community. In my last 6 months in my stakeholder input, and I will publish it in February. Apparently, it's a need from the community, really looking at a middle school model that's separate from what even me growing up, that pre-K-8 model, because of the needs that middle school students need: social, emotional, academic, but also programmatic, whether it's a STEM or dual language expansion or whatever it may be. So I will be coming back to the city council very soon to get their input and their support in what the community will want to see as part of our school system moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez, and welcome to Holyoke.
Doctor, just for your information, Councilor Graney was a longtime school committee person before he joined us. So we often look to him on his his experience with the schools. Councilor Lacey.
I also spent 35 years as a professional educator.
I don't want to bring everything up, Howie.
Councilor Lacey.
Thank you. Thanks for being here this evening. I just wanted to see if we could get the full number that we're going to be transferring to the school budget, and also understand whether the $2 million reduction is exclusively from transportation, or if it's coming from other areas.
The $2 million is exclusively from transportation. And then there's 1.9 million, which is coming from just a reduction in chapter 70. But that's not 1.9 million that we have to cut. We have ESSER money to be able to maintain the staffing levels required, and even in this remote model. So this is a time where our students need us the most, and we didn't have to make any staffing cuts to make up for that 1.9 million. We were able to benefit from ESSER and coronavirus money that was given to us to help, bluntly, to help with what we knew was coming, which was a cut to chapter 70.
So I want to add a disclaimer to that, right? So the ESSER money is a one-time given for school districts throughout the country. So that means that 1.9 might not be available for us next year, which means that I would have to work with Anthony and the team to mitigate very soon, because if I have current programs or staffing, if I don't get any type of funding for those programs or staffing, it might go away for the next academic year. So I just want to put that disclaimer in the spirit of transparency, because it's just a one-time opportunity for the district to actually sustain some programs that we needed to put in place this year. So I just want to be very transparent to the city council that this is just a one-time because of the pandemic that was given to school districts throughout the country.
Thank you.
Great. And so what's the full amount of the transfer? Is it, do you have that available?
Yes. Let me pull that up.
Right. So while you're looking for it, Anthony, I'll just make a few comments, since a lot has been said about middle schools in this conversation. I think we heard loud and clear throughout the entire year last year that a middle school model is absolutely necessary for our city. I think Dr. Vasquez hit it on several points already in this meeting, but like developmentally, programmatically, social emotionally, like a middle school model is what we need to move towards. And I think the only question is really how. So again, is it going to be 2 middle schools? Is it going to be 1 middle school? Where is it going to happen? And how are we going to fund it is really, the big question that's out there. And I'm really glad to hear the amount of support for a middle school model, I guess philosophically in this call here. I do think that, this incident with the 15-year-old who was shot in his neighborhood is, it is directly an artifact of the poor sort of middle school programming that we have at the moment, because it is, we heard it all last year. It's just not engaging our middle school students. And look at what happened, like literally look at what happened. It makes the city more unsafe for our youth, and also for all the families that are not presently in school. So I really hope we spend a lot of time with broad, community dialogue around this issue. It's super important that we actually, instead of, saying we philosophically, believe in middle schools, that we figure out a way to get, the rubber to hit the road, if you will, so that we're actually building those middle schools.
I appreciate your comment, Councilwoman Alisi, because that is a critical element to the success of our district. And I've done my homework, right, of what was proposed in the past around middle schools. But I think one of the things that I want to actually get to a point is the selling point, right? There's a difference between saying, oh, we get a new building versus, okay, you get a new building, but what are we selling as a product of an educational product? And so that is what my team is working on looking at and analysis and doing a really deep analysis of what is that academic program that middle school students will get, whether it's a new facility or we have to repurpose a facility and retrofit a facility, whatever it may be. But we definitely need standalone middle schools to separate that elementary element to a middle school element, because our students learn differently currently in this era in a middle school band than they did 12 or 10 years ago. And so how do we actually deal with that? And then how do we actually implement those early warning indicators to making sure that they are on track to graduate in 4 years from the high school? So when they go into Holyoke High School or the Dean campus, all those students have the skills and the knowledge to be able to be successfully graduates in 4 years instead of waiting for 5 or 6 years or possibly drop out. So that is the work that we're doing right now. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Councilor Alisi, your number's 3,973,000.
So if I may, so we're only transferring the reductions over to you? I would think it was happening in the inverse.
It's not transferring it over to us, it's reducing our budget. So we're not getting additional money, we're getting less money.
Right, so if you're getting $3.9 million less, what's that number? That's the number I'm looking for.
You're looking for our total budget for next year?
Right, so we're going to be making this transfer.
Yep. And
it's going to be your budget minus this 3.9.
Yep. Right? So that number is 70,719,000. Prior to this, it was 74.7.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
You're on mute, Joe.
Jeff, can you unmute him?
Joe, you're muted.
Can you hit the unmute?
Blame it on the Giants.
Giants.
The Giants.
Sorry. Maybe a couple suggestions. Everybody has spoken for one time. Does anybody else need to speak again? I think we're all set. So in item number 1, it's quite obvious now that what's in front of us, the numbers have changed, and we're going to address that at the next meeting in 5 minutes, which is the city council meeting. So I suggest that we just refer this back to the auditor to dispose of.
I make a motion to send this back to the auditor to dispose of it.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Everybody okay with the wording? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Joe, just a quick, since you brought it up, when we do end this meeting, to go to the next meeting, do we have to exit this meeting and launch it again?
Yes, we do. And just so if anybody doesn't have them, Jeffrey set up a different Zoom ID, okay, for the city council meeting. That is in right now. He's got that in the chat room.
Okay.
If you don't have it already. And
Okay, thank you.
I'll try and read it before we adjourn. Item number 2 is the mayor's budget that was here to discuss. We discussed it already at the city council level. We heard from the mayor tonight at the finance committee level. I suggest we just receive it and keep it in our archives.
Make a motion.
Motion to receive.
Motion made to receive, keep in the archives. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 3 is the stabilization letter, the transfer itself. I suggest that we refer that back to the auditor to dispose of.
Make a motion to
give it
refer
leave
back to the
withdraw.
auditor.
Motion made second to refer this item back to the auditor to dispose of. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item 4, we're going to use this at a future meeting when we have DLS in, perhaps the mayor or mayor's designee, the auditor, and have a discussion on what's going on with free cash and why so much of it was used this year for the deficits in various accounts throughout the city. So
I make a motion to keep it.
Motion
Keep in committee.
Motion made second to table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, Joe, if we make a motion to table it, don't we have to act on a specific length of time?
No, only if it was a public hearing.
Okay.
On that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The final one, and I know Councilor Bartley asked about this, was here to help us out with everything, is changed again. And this is the recapitulation sheet I call it, many of us call it the cherry sheet, is a moving target. And this is controlled mostly by the state. It's, as the mayor indicated, as you will know in a few minutes, there's a new one. That's why a lot of this happened where we don't need certain votes tonight. So I think as far as what's in front of us, we can just receive it. And we've had 5 of these changed already this year, so it's no big deal. We'll have the final one later tonight.
Make a motion to receive.
Motion to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Before we adjourn, we're going to go, the city council meeting is scheduled for 6. It's a separate Zoom ID number and a separate password number, which is for anybody that's in this meeting. It's in the chat room right now, but in the chat room is a link. I don't use the link. I just use the numbers. So
What are those? Do you have those handy?
No, I use the numbers too. What are they?
That's what, Jeffrey, can you just give us the numbers?
Can't we just hit that, Joe?
If you want, you can use the link. Because
Yeah,
I
the
have
link.
a
Yeah.
Zoom account. I just use the numbers. Probably shouldn't have said that on air, but
I have the meeting ID number.
what do you got? What do you got, Tony?
The meeting ID number is 816-3699-0468. And then the passcode is 296919.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. The city council
Second.
meeting is starting very quickly. I believe our president just winked at me. All those in favor of adjourning? Any
Aye.
opposed? See you in 2 minutes.